Hello, and thank you for watching today's podcast dealing with one of the most controversial topics of the 20th century, the Vietnam War. So, to get started, let's take a look at the question of why did the war begin? The roots of the Vietnam conflict actually began with the tensions between colonial power France and Vietnam. Since the late 1800s, much of Indochina was ruled by the French, creating a region known as French Indochina, which was made up of present-day Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. After years of fighting to maintain control of their colonies, France, which was still in the process of rebuilding both structurally and militarily following World War II, withdrew from the region, and a peace conference was held. This peace conference, also known as the Geneva Conference, set out to not only bring stability to Indochina, but also to unify Korea. Ironically, a fate similar to Korea was agreed upon in Vietnam, and the country was divided along the 17th parallel, creating a communist-led North and a democratic South. Supporters of North Vietnam included North Korea, China, the Soviet Union, and Cuba. The man pictured to the right, Ho Chi Minh, would become the chairman or leader of North Vietnam. Supporters of the South included the United States, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines. Pictured on the left is President Diem, the leader of South Vietnam. While the goal in Vietnam was to unify the nation through free elections, South Vietnam and the United States felt as if they could not trust North Vietnam's communist government to uphold their end of the deal. As history has shown, free elections do not exist in a communist state, so unification elections were called off, and tensions began to rise. Let's take a look at what happened. When Vietnam was divided, a great deal of migration occurred, with people living in the South moving north and vice versa. Not all communists supporting Vietnamese relocated to the north, however. This communist presence in the south, known as the Viet Cong, worried the leader of South Vietnam, President Diem. Diem, an unpopular figure among the majority of Vietnamese, feared a communist takeover and began arresting anyone with communist ties. Struggling to maintain power and control of South Vietnam, thousands of suspected opponents were executed. In response to the actions of South Vietnam's government, the Viet Cong began fighting back, using guerrilla tactics, or irregular warfare such as ambushes, sabotage, and raids, to challenge Diem's police force and military. Over time, U.S. involvement in Vietnam escalated. What started out as 900 military advisors under President Eisenhower ballooned to 16,000 military personnel under President Kennedy. By the end of the conflict in 1975, over 2.7 million U.S. troops served in Vietnam. But the question of why did the U.S. get involved still remains. For the United States, Vietnam, like Korea, was a battle to protect democracy. According to the domino theory, once one state in a region fell under the influence of communism, surrounding countries would follow. The role of the U.S. was to protect people from the oppressive ideals of communism. So what happened? As time went on, American support for the war dwindled. In 1969, the process of removing U.S. troops and personnel from Vietnam began. The withdrawal of U.S. troops continued for 6 years, and on April 30th, 1975, with the fall of South Vietnam's capital city of Saigon, the last remaining soldiers were flown out of the country. Over 22,000 South Vietnamese were evacuated as well. The outcome. Lasting 20 years, the Vietnam War is the longest conflict in U.S. history. The war was fought using flame-throwing tanks, napalm bombs, herbicides like Agent Orange, and state-of-the-art helicopters. But even with new technology and tactics, over 58,000 U.S. troops died while serving in Vietnam. For many historians, the domino theory held true. Following the success of North Vietnam, communism spread into the governments of neighboring Laos and Cambodia. On July 2nd of 1976, North and South Vietnam merged to form the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Vietnam remains a communist nation to this day. Thank you for watching.